the prophetic code hidden in the Bible that points to the current conflict between Israel and the Muslims, or Israel and the Palestinian people. Is it true that every single conflict in the world is decoded in the Bible? The answer is yes, especially if it has to do with Israel. Everything that is happening already has been established in prophetic pictures thousands of years ago. Just like King Solomon said, there's nothing new under the sun. So in order to understand this conflict, there has been scholars from the United Nations and Harvard University and diplomats and ambassadors, and they have achieved absolutely nothing with the peace process because they are so ignorant about the Bible, and they don't understand that the conflict is basically spiritual. It's not about money, it's not really about land, it's not about weapons, it's not about diplomacy. It's a spiritual, 100%. 4,000 years ago, our Heavenly Father called our physical father, Abraham, to the promised land, and he promised to give him that land. At the moment, a man that was like 80 some years, it was difficult to believe that you were going to be a father of nations, when in reality you didn't have not even one child. Your wife was barren. Nevertheless, in order to give him a powerful sign that this was going to happen, he says, your children will be slaves in a land that is not theirs. But after 400 years, I will bring them out, and they will inherit this land. Abraham believed the vision, but Sarah was barren. She was like very old. She was past the age of childbearing. She was like 70 something, approaching her 80s. It's impossible at that age for a woman to bear a son. So she found out, I'm gonna throw my 2 cents in here. Instead of waiting on our eternal Elohim, I'm gonna throw my 2 cents. So she figured it out. Don't let the promises of Elohim fail because of me. So she said to Abraham, have Hagar. Hagar was Egyptian. Abraham was kind of puzzled, but he accepted. Hagar immediately conceived seed. And in the moment she conceived seed, she despised Sarah. So there was animosity. She was not respectful anymore. You can tell what kind of a spirit is that. Instead of showing gratitude, to her masters, already despising Sarah. It's not a good sign. But Elohim's promises never failed, no matter how late you think they may come. 1,000 years is just like one day in his eyes. So Sarah was 90 years old. The angels go to visit Sarah, saying, in this season, next year, in the season of life, Sarah will have a son. She was laughing. She didn't know how to process this information. So she delivered a son, being 90 years old. And she was laughing. But there was a problem. Ishmael was already like a teenager by the time Isaac was born, and he was the firstborn in the flesh, even though the firstborn in the spirit, and the firstborn in the promise, and the firstborn from Sarah, the chosen, the true wife of Abraham, it's Isaac. Ishmael was mocking. It's a sign of pride, like, you little child, you think you're gonna take my inheritance. And Sarah, in her prophetic vision, she saw that Ishmael was just gonna be trouble. So she suggested Abraham to throw them out. Very difficult situation for Abraham. Is his son. Ishmael is his son too. Abraham is a loving man. He's not a vicious man, he's not a vengeful man, he's a loving man. So to throw his son. But he prays, and Father tells him, listen to your wife. So this plan, it was from heaven. Before people jump into criticizing the Bible and criticizing Abraham, they need to remember that even before Ishmael grew, it was prophesied that he was going to be a wild man, a beast of a man. So this is not compatible with the spiritual holy man, which is Isaac. Imagine that you have 2 kids. One reads the Bible, is honest, lives a holy life, never cheats, never lies. never harms anyone. The other one is a drug dealer, has a machine gun under his pillow, a bunch of cash under his mattresses. He has been involved in several shootouts. The cops are after him. So this is pretty much the paradigm between Isaac and Ishmael, just to give you an idea. So they were completely incompatible. So Ishmael gets thrown out. Isaac grows, he finds his wife, and his wife had twins. Which is very interesting. And they had a similar problem. One was Jacob, the other one was Esau. Jacob, he was a holy man, intended to carry the promise of the Torah, of inhabiting the land, of worshiping the Elohim, the true Elohim of Abraham and Isaac. But his brother was a reckless, violent man. He was a hunter, and he was a fleshly man. He sold his birthright for a dish of lentils. And also was prophesied, that the elder was going to serve the younger. So eventually, as Isaac was growing old, it came the time to give a blessing. When Rebekah saw that Isaac was going to bless the wrong child, she urged Jacob to present himself first. Jacob takes the blessing, and then Esau comes, and he also wants a blessing, but the blessing is not a very good blessing, as you will live by the sword. After that blessing, he wanted to kill his brother. So Jacob needs to escape as a fugitive, 20 years to Haran, till the rage of his brother would be appeased. Eventually, Esau realized that marrying pagan women that worship idols, Hittites, were a complete headache to Rebekah. He decides to marry into the bloodline the daughter of Ishmael, not realizing that Ishmael was not a holy guy. So that's the beginning of the unholy alliance. And that's the beginning of a race that will eventually become the founding DNA fathers of Islam. Most of the Islamic nations are descendants of Esau and Ishmael. So after 20 years, Jacob comes from Haran. He comes to inherit the promise. He comes with all of his children, and he wants to make peace with Esau. And Esau encounters him, comes with 400 men. Some commentators say that he wanted to kill him, but then Jacob shows respect, bowing down before him 3 times. So his heart is moved. They hug each other, they kiss each other, they cry together. But Esau wanted to mingle with Israel and form a nation. And that's impossible, as I explained before. So eventually the two peoples meet, but they have actually nothing in common. Jacob implores, Esau just to leave him alone, that he would continue alone. So the descendants of Esau have the bloodline of Ishmael, half Ishmael, half Esau. Years later, Joseph is the chosen one, but the brothers were jealous of Joseph, so they sold him as a slave. Now, who was the one to carry Joseph into Egypt and depose him, deport him from his land? The Ishmaelites. So the Ishmaelites were still around, plotting with Esau to conquer the land. So eventually Israel, through a famine, they go into Egypt, they become a mighty nation. Then with Moses, they came back. By the time they came back, Ishmael was pretty much in Arabia, and by that time Esau was already out of the land. They didn't have any interest. In the moment Israel was out, they didn't have interest. But Israel came back into the land. Thousands of years later, the temple gets destroyed. 7 centuries later, Islam is created, and since then Muslims have been occupying Israel till 1948, when Israel declared independence. What people don't understand is that the problem is not about land, it's not about politics, it's not about money, it's not about war, it's 100% spiritual. By Israel coming back and fulfilling the prophecies of the return and claiming the land is a complete threat to the entire Islamic world. It's a threat to Ishmael, and it's a threat to Esau, because Esau was not blessed. It was Jacob you know, and Ishmael knows pretty well that the inheritance was not his. The inheritance is Isaac's. So we have on one hand a people that has been promised the land of Israel, and they have been blessed. But there is another people that they have tremendous resentment because they were thrown out of the land, and they believe that Ishmael is the chosen one, the blessed one. They believe that they have the right to the land. What's happening right now goes all the way back to ancient Ishmael and Esau. Shalom and blessings to all of you, and stay tuned for more Messianic News updates.